a question. According to the GAO in 2009, and the reason I'm asking Senator Coburn about this, because there's nobody of this 100 senators that are here today who has spent more hours, effort, and time in dealing with the duplicative programs of the federal government than Senator Coburn. And he's brought these issues up time and again. But I would just ask, according to the GAO in 2009, Senator Coburn, I understand that 9 federal agencies spent $18 billion to administer 47 job training programs. You've looked into that. I know I've heard you speak about that in specific. I was surprised that you brought out that there are already 6 programs for veterans now, and this would be a new one added to it. What is your view of what a responsible Congress should do when we learn that we're spending this much money on all these programs with their own bureaucrats and so forth? Can we do better?
Absolutely. Let me give the people some hope. Virginia Fox, a representative from North Carolina in the House, who is the chairman of the subcommittee on workforce and labor, has passed a bill out of her committee that consolidates 33 of those job training programs into one, puts metrics on every one of them, so we'll know if they're working, requires mandatory oversight of them. The reason she didn't do all 47 is 14 of them are not in her jurisdiction. But add to it another $4 billion and another 20-plus programs for the disabled. So we actually have almost 70 programs and $23 billion a year we're spending on job training, of which nobody knows. Matter of fact, I know they're not working. We actually released a report on job training in Oklahoma. We looked at every job training, federal job training, and state job training program going on in Oklahoma. You know what works? Oklahoma programs. You know what doesn't work? Federal job training programs in Oklahoma. We have one city in Oklahoma that has 16,000 people, has 17 federal job training centers, and an unemployment rate of 4.7%. 17 different federal agencies in one city of 16,000 people with an unemployment rate of 4.7%. What we are doing is employing people in the job training industry, which may be good if they're having results, but we have results that are untenable. So the real question, and job training is just one area of our federal government. The GAO has released reports on duplication. Their final report will come February of this year, where they will have looked at the entire federal government. And what we know right now is if we did our work, 10 years, we could save $200 billion by eliminating duplication in federal programs. $200 billion. And no, I said over 10 years. That's $200 billion per year. It's $2 trillion over 10 years. We could save $200 billion per year. Sequestration? We wouldn't be having sequestration if we did our job. If we did our oversight, if we consolidated programs, made them transparent and made them accountable and put metrics on them to see if they're working, and then did the oversight to see that they were working, we wouldn't be in sequestration. We wouldn't have near the problems that we have today. But the failure is us. The Congress has failed to do its job. And the consequences will not be borne by us. The consequences will be borne by the son of my Health LA, who was just born, or my new grandson, who's now almost 7 weeks old. That's who's going to pay the consequences, is the children of this country, when we fail to do our job. So I appreciate your leadership. I'm going to support your point of order. It's the right thing to do. And I didn't even talk about the areas that you talked about in terms of, we set up this budget agreement for 2 years. And I'll tell you what, the CR coming, this is the irony of all ironies. Had we not had that budget agreement and we did a CR, we would spend $2.6 billion less next year if we had a clean CR than under the Budget Control Act that we passed. By doing the Budget Control Act, we're actually going to spend more money than we did last year. So everything's upside down in Washington because everything's political or parochial, and nobody's thinking long-term about the big problems facing our country. I yield the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I thank the senator from Oklahoma. He served on the Debt Commission. He is steeped in the challenges facing our country, and he's working hard to fix our difficulties. I salute Senator Burr for coming forward with a proposal that I think would do the job within the budget, and regretfully, I think we'll end this matter today, and the legislation is coming forward through the budget point of order. I thank the chair and yield the floor.
President.
Senator from Florida.
Madam President, the senator from Alabama knows the personal friendship that we have and my high regard for him and the privilege that I've had working with him over the years. And it has been a working relationship. And I just want to say that regardless of what you feel about a budget and a budget point of order, we are talking about a technicality to kill a bill to help unemployed veterans at a time that they desperately need help because they are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and they can't find work. And until we come out of the recession and the recovery is underway, but veterans have a higher percent of unemployment, and especially veterans under age 24 have an even higher percentage of unemployment. And so what we have here is a piece of legislation to give an employment cushion for veterans for at least a year until they can find employment in the private sector. And this is employment to do things that we need, since so many of our national resources, such as parks, such as emergency responders, such as firefighters, such as police, need help. Look at all the unfunded things that are deteriorating in the national parks. This would be an opportunity to employ those veterans and employ them up to a year. Everybody knows that this makes common sense and it's the right thing to do. And what's happening is the folks on that side of the aisle, because we are in an election and because this happened to be a proposal coming out of the White House and is brought to the floor by this senator from Florida, they're not going to support it, and they're going to kill it on a technicality by denying us 60 votes in order to waive the budgetary point of order. Now, that's the bottom line. That's what's going on here, and it's sad. And yet, that's what's happening. And just look at the votes in the last week. Here, we passed the motion for cloture on the motion to proceed by 95-1. Doesn't that tell you something? And then we had the second procedural vote. It was 84-8. All we need is 60 votes to get over this hurdle and to get to the bill and then probably pass it by unanimous consent, because everybody agrees with the substance of this. It's clear that common sense legislation that has bipartisan support is getting thwarted in this chamber. And that's because we all know how important it is to help our veterans find work as they return home. Now, does the senator from Oklahoma want to ask a question? You know, this senator from Oklahoma knows my respect for him and my personal friendship for him, and I admire the senator in the courageous stands. But the senator would understand that I respectfully say that in a need so great as unemployed veterans, this is not the time to draw a technical line on a budget. And I would earnestly and respectfully request of my friend that this be one of the considerations that he would make. Would the senator want to engage in any conversation, or I'll go on and just complete?
Well, I would just like to ask the President of the Senate if we might have a back and forth real debate on this, recognizing this both for time with you controlling the time. I have no difficulty with that. But one of the reasons I came out is I don't agree with the substance of this bill. And I don't want you to make a statement from the Senate floor as everybody does. We have 6 veterans job training programs and nobody's oversight it. Nobody knows if they work.
What I would suggest to my friend, and he knows that he's my friend, if he has a difference of opinion, I respect that, and I want him to share that. I'd like to go on and just complete my very brief statement here, and then
I will follow up after
for the senator to state whatever it is. The unemployment rate among veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan was hovering around 11%. And for those unemployed veterans in the age 24 and less, it's even higher. We've taken steps to combat this problem. This past summer, we passed legislation that will help veterans get federal occupational licenses when their military training matches civilian requirements. That made sense. That made common sense. As a matter of fact, we got that through the Senate unanimously, and that was signed into law. And that was to say that a veteran gets all of this specialized training, and they ought to be able to utilize that training without having to go through all the training and the licensing. And we could do that, and what we passed and is now law, we could do that in federal employment where there is a similar kind of requirement. And now what's in this bill is to do that for the state occupational requirements. To take a veteran who has a military discipline, a specialty, and as that veteran is applying for a private sector job that happens to be covered by state law on the occupational requirements and requirements of licensing, that is a consideration instead of the veteran having to go through all of that again. Now, that just makes common sense. And that particular idea was offered by the senator from Arkansas, Senator Pryor, and is a part of the bill. Just like Senator Murray, she is here on the floor, the chairman of the committee, reached out and incorporated a number, and she can address that, a number of the different ideas, bipartisan, not just my idea, which is the one that I was talking about, that veterans can have employment up to a year, but so many others that are incorporated into the bill that came out of committee. And so we already did something about matching civilian requirements, albeit what was signed into law was just with regard to federal employment. Last year also, we passed a bill that granted tax benefits to companies that hire wounded warriors. And of course, you know what inspiration that all the rest of us take from the wounded warriors. The senator and I, from time to time, go to Bethesda, to what used to be called Bethesda Naval, now is the combined all military services, Walter Reed. Every one of us that goes out there and you suddenly see these veterans coming in on these new kind of computer control prostheses where they can actually walk and run, even when their leg has been blown off above the knee. It just pulls at your heart, and yet you're so glad that technology has moved. But those same ladies and gentlemen need jobs. And until the recovery is complete, they're having difficulty. And that's why I filed this bill. And the chairman of the committee and the ranking member have done their best to work across the aisle. Veterans don't care to hear about why we can't help them. They don't care to hear about technicalities of a budget point of order. They want our country to support them in the way that they have supported us, and that is an obligation. A lot of us in this chamber have served in the military, and it's ingrained, I think, in every senator here that we have an obligation to those who have served this country. This effort here today that we're going to vote on in 20 minutes has the broad support from veterans and police organizations, the Disabled American Veterans, the Military Officers Association of America, the National Association of Police Organizations, the American Legion. They all support it. The Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America have called and pleaded for its immediate passage. And they know why, because their veterans need, and they need to know that Congress has their back. So I just make a plea to the Senate. We just need a few votes from that side of the aisle to get to the threshold of 60 to waive the technicality of the budget point of order. And Madam President, I would yield the floor, and I'd be looking forward to my friend's comments.
Madam President.
Senator from Oklahoma.
The time is controlled over here. I would reserve, Madam President, the final 7 minutes for the chairman of the committee.
Without objection.
My colleague from Florida raises some good points about our desire, about us wanting to help our veterans. I don't think there's anybody here that does not recognize the significant sacrifice. Matter of fact, it wasn't long ago that the 45th from Oklahoma lost 17 people in Afghanistan and hundreds wounded. The real question is, how do you help them the best? How do you really help veterans? You know, we're going to have plenty of opportunities to always say there's a reason to not do the right thing for the long-term best interest of our country. We've never found ourselves in the predicament that we find ourselves in today in terms of our financial exposure, the real risk to the veterans that have jobs today, which nobody's talking about, the real risk for them. Because when this thing goes down, and I'm talking about the financial collapse of this country, when it happens, those that have jobs that are veterans today are going to lose them. So there could be no more noble cause than to make an exception for veterans. Except that's not what the Senate does. We make an exception every time. Every time. Here's the question for my friend. Under what system of values, honor, and integrity did these veterans serve? The highest and noblest of honor and integrity. Without a doubt. They put their life on the line so I don't have to, so my adult, mature children in their 30s and 40s don't have to. The difference is what they put their life on the line for was to ensure that the freedom and liberty and vibrancy of this country goes forward. And we're taking a little pocket knife to one of the legs of the three-legged stool with our actions and slowly nibbling the support of that leg. We're taking it away by our very actions.
Madam President, I'd like to respond to my friend.
Well, if I could finish, since you have the last 7 minutes, I'll be finished well before then. We're going to say that the financial condition of the country doesn't matter. We're going to say that it doesn't matter if the $1 billion we're spending a year already on veteran job training program, doesn't matter. We're going to say, here's a year's program for job for 20,000 veterans, and that's going to trump everything else. You know, you wouldn't have any objection from this senator if you actually really paid for this, one, if you didn't violate pay-go, and you really did it in a way that oversighted the present job training programs that we had, and you really did it the way that matches the integrity and honor of our veterans. But we didn't do that. No, we played games. We played games with the budget rules. We played games with pay-go. We didn't do any oversight. We didn't even have a hearing. There was no hearing on this bill. You took Senator Burr's suggestions, which were common sense, and applied it broadly across the government. But we didn't match the honor and integrity and valor and purpose. And when I meet with veterans in town hall meetings, I ask them why they serve. You know what they tell me? Because this is the greatest country the world has ever known. And they want to keep it that way. Well, what we're doing today doesn't keep it that way. It doesn't keep it that way. It perpetuates the same problems that have created the very, very dangerous situation that this country is in. So when we make a claim that everybody agrees with this bill, I just want to say I don't agree with the bill. There's a whole lot of ways to help veterans that is better than this, that gives them a permanent job. You know, we passed the GI, the post-9/11 GI Bill, right? You can get paid a stipend while you go to college to learn a new skill, the same as a non-com officer. You get paid for the books and tuition and everything else, so you can become whole as you learn a skill. We have the capability for studies while we're in the military. We have 6 separate job training programs that we're spending $1 billion a year on. The best way to help veterans is to fix this country's economic situation, to create opportunity, and they'll fly. Because they've already proven that they have the initiative, the strength, the moral courage, the integrity, and the valor to accomplish anything that they want to accomplish. So, I'm in disagreement with my friend. I think we have a political device in front of us. And I'm going to be very interested to see the character of the Senate on whether it succumbs to the parochial and political over the best long-term interests of the country. And if it does, it just proves that the Senate needs to be changed to truly address the real problems in front of the country. That's what it's going to prove, regardless of the outcome. Do we have the character? Do we match the valor, honor, and integrity of the people who serve this nation in the armed forces with our willingness to sacrifice our political careers to do what's in the best long-term interest of the country? They've set the example for us. The question is whether or not we'll follow their example. I yield to my friend from Florida.
Madam President,
Senator from Florida.
Madam President,